This is Goku's son, DBZ, and yeah, I know it's unusual seeing me without my hat on. And, wearing one of my older rock shirts, Papa Roach shirt, which is pretty awesome. Good overall hard rock band, but anyways. This is my second ever movie review, and this will be a movie review for Batman: The Killing Joke. And, which is of course based on, obviously, the great graphic novel which came out several years prior. Now, first thing I will say is, of course, this is rated R, which is a good thing, so they can be a little more accurate to the actual graphic novel, which is definitely very rated R overall aspect-wise with the graphic novel itself, because of blood and many other elements, especially disturbing imagery, but given its revolves basically around the Joker, you kind of expect disturbing imagery when you include the Prince of Crime. But with that said, now anybody who was expecting a overall 100% loyal, based on the source material of the graphic novel with the film, you may be just a little bit disappointed with the film. I will say that much about this movie, because it is basically the first 30 minutes or so of the movie has absolutely nothing to do with the actual overall graphic novel. The second and the third act 100% are based on the novel. Very accurate overall. I would say 90% accurate to the actual graphic novel. And that's impressive, even more in animated film. You don't get too much accuracy on things like that, but with that said, on the film, here are the big things. As I said, and yes, there will be spoilers involved with this, so just a fair warning. With that said, the first 35 minutes of the film has this villain that really has nothing to do with the actual story arc of The Killing Joke, but it revolves quite a bit around the character of Batgirl. And how should I put this? And it's to make you feel more for her when the actual story arc of The Killing Joke starts up. Because we know, of course, one of the big things that happens in The Killing Joke, obviously. But the overall pacing of the movie is pretty well done for the most part. I will say that. Personally, I didn't mind the first 30 minutes. I felt it was kind of slow though, sluggish start. And if you're going to call the movie after the actual name of the graphic novel, Batman: The Killing Joke, then maybe it should have been about an hour long rather than a 90-minute film. And I understand Warner Brothers wanted to make it a little bit more length of an actual film, rather than a 50-minute to an hour, like a normal special or something. But with that said, I overall didn't mind with the whole scenes with Batgirl, because I actually find that character interesting. And for me, it was okay, because I'm not one of the biggest hardcore fans of this particular graphic novel. I like the graphic novel, and I own it, yes, when I found sale a few years back, with a couple of graphic novels he had special going on, buy two get one free. But with that said, but I didn't mind it, because there wasn't any real major pacing issues, even with the 30 minutes of additional footage I had for the first act of the 3 acts, which of course all films are based around that basic principle, is 3 acts to a film. Killing Joke starts in Act 2 and Act 3. And overall, it's really well done. It's very dark, very demented, but it's still not quite as dark as the actual graphic novel is. Now, I've personally only read the graphic novel 3 times, so I do know all the basics down in my head. And I knew, for the most part, how the movie was going to play out, scene by scene. And that showed it was very low to source material. Now, with that said, of course we know, spoiler alert, that towards the beginning of The Killing Joke, we of course have that little surprise visit of the Joker showing up in sort of like a Hawaiian shirt and stuff with a gun pointer, and then shoots in the abdomen region. Of course, our dear Lady Batgirl, or of course, which will become known as another character later in the story arc, as we know, once the injury happens, which they even touch on that in some of the video games like Arkham Knight and other things such as that. Base around somewhat the playouts of that story arc. And The Killing Joke, of course, one of the things, hands up, makes this movie interesting is the art style in this film. It's very good quality. And interesting, most people may not know, is current day DC anime films are actually not done by American companies. It's now done by, well, their animation division is actually based out of South Korea now. So it's more Korean animation, which is why you've seen some stuff, elements similar to that of anime, Japanese animation. But anyways, off topic. But I personally felt the film maybe was more like a hard PG-13 rather than an R, because there really wasn't any language that you would hear in a rated R film. Maybe it's R because of the disturbing imagery, and you have a little bit more blood than you would normally see in most DC anime films, but for the most part, I don't think it deserves the R rating it got. I really feel that it really was just a hard PG-13. It just didn't feel graphic enough to be an R rating. But, that's what they just rated, but at least allow them to push the envelope even just a tad more than their other anime films would allow. And, as I said, actually the pacing overall of the film is very well done. And fans of the graphic novel, well, if you may not enjoy the first half hour, the first act, with Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, so you might want to skip over the first 30 minutes of the film if you're really watching it strictly for the Killing Joke storyline. You may just want to skip to Act 2. But that's the reason why some critics here on YouTube have been bashing the film, is because they were basing it strictly off the source material, strictly off the graphic novel, and they weren't expecting this extra 30 minutes of footage for you to try to connect better with Barbara Gordon and make you feel more for her when she would end up getting injured by the Joker. And of course, we see a lot of flashbacks in this to the Joker's past. Well, one version of his past. There's 5 different versions really out there from all the different timelines, parallel dimensions and stuff, to the point DC Universe is very, very confusing and hurts my head. Marvel is confusing, but even Marvel Universe makes a little more sense than the way the DC whole multiverse thing works. But with that said, it is a very enjoyable film, and I think if you're not going into this film basing everything strictly off the graphic novel, I think you will genuinely enjoy this film greatly. And if you're expecting strictly based on the graphic novel, you're probably going to be a little bit let down and disappointed with the film. And that's just my fair warning to you, so you don't have your hopes too high and then kind of get let down. I didn't have really too much hopes one way or the other on the film, but I will say I definitely had a great time with this film, and it's definitely worth watching. On a score of 1 to 10, I rate Batman, The Killing Joke, a strong 9 out of 10. That's what I give this, a 9 out of 10 rating. So that's a very good overall rating. And I definitely can say I will probably be watching this a second time this week, actually, in the next few days. I genuinely, truly enjoyed it. It may even be in my top 5 favorite animated Batman films of all time already, after just one time of watching it. Now, I couldn't rate in the top 3 animated Batman films of all time. Well, involving Batman anyways. I'll just say my top 2 favorite animated Batman films of all time are, number 2 is probably a lot of people's number 1 favorite animated Batman film, and number 2 for me personally is the Mask of the Phantasm is my number 2 favorite overall animated Batman film of all time. My number 1 is Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. And as people know by now, I love the Batman comics, and I love all 3 seasons of the animated series, along with the movie. And now, one other thing I want to say nothing but good things about with this film is, of course, we had the great voices that we grew up with in the 90s come back and reprise the roles. Kevin Conroy, once again, did a great once-in-a-lifetime performance as Batman. Always will be Batman as far as I'm concerned. And once again, Mark Hamill outdid himself as the Joker. His laugh, spot on as always, though I think probably the best Joker laugh I've ever heard, ever, hands down, has got to be in Mask of the Phantasm. That, hands down, was the best Joker laugh I've ever heard in history. And as far as I'm concerned, Mark Hamill is the definitive Joker of all time. Period. I don't even care. You combine animated and live-action Jokers together. To me, the definitive Joker is Mark Hamill and always will be freaking Mark Hamill. There is no one that even rivals him. And maybe in second place for me is probably a tie between Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger. I really like Jack Nicholson, though, performance as the Joker. But yeah. And Kevin Conroy is tied for being my favorite Batman of all time. Probably with Christian Bale as being my all-time favorite Batman. Hands down. Though I feel Batman such as Val Kilmer gets very underrated. But anyways, with that said, yes, overall, I give this a 9 out of 10 rating. So, very good. And please leave a comment and let me know if you would like me in the near future to review another DC film, live action or anime. It's up to you. I will give you the option of an animated and a live action film, and I'll let you leave a comment. You can either leave me a comment on Twitter.com/GokuSunDBZ or on Google Plus, or also on Tumblr, of course, or here on YouTube. Just let me know which DC film you would want me to review next. And the 2 to choose from are the animated Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker for the animated film, and for the live action film is actually a newer film that just came out, Suicide Squad, which I just saw yesterday and I will be seeing a second time this coming weekend. And I greatly enjoyed that film, by the way. I thought it was better than Batman v Superman, hands down. But that's just me. But anyways, I'll see you next time here in YouTube Land, as always. And hopefully you like and subscribe. Follow me at Twitter.com/GokuSunDBZ. And leave me a comment. Let me know if you saw The Killing Joke and what your personal views on the film were and how much you enjoyed it overall. I'll see you next time here in YouTube Land. And of course, from here, my next comic book review will be Spawn 262, the last chapter of Satan's Saga Wars. And leave me a comment and let me know if you want me to review a DC comic, which I can promise you the next DC comic I will be reviewing will be issue number 2 of Nightwing Rebirth. So I'll see you soon enough, and also I may be in the near future reviewing the graphic novel of this. So let me know. And I'll see you next time here in YouTube Land.